Well, hey guys, hi. It is Brent Abel here, webtennis.com. Hope you're having a great day so far, wherever you are, as as you get logged into this very short notice. I appreciate everyone being on who's on the live, because it was literally less than 2 hours notice that I gave you about today's topic, which is going to be habit stacking. And if you haven't read the book, now, of course, I can't remember. James Clear, Atomic Habits, spectacular book. And there's so much in that book that really relates to becoming a better tennis player. And one of them is habit stacking. I guess the general thing is, we ought to be looking at technique in terms of just simple habits. What are the good things that we need to be repeating over and over and over again? And what are the habits that we've got that maybe are not great for our game? And for me, it's more on the mental side, right? It's more, what do I think about between points? Well, I've got my own routine about thinking between points. And when I am very disciplined to it, not only in practice matches, but also in the real deal and league and tournament stuff, I just am a much more consistent player. And it's when I get away from those good habits between points, when my mind can wander and I can get scattered and sort of unfocused. But today we're going to work on habit stacking, and habit stacking is, in this particular case, what are the three habits that we really need to be considering that we should be doing on any shot that we're about to play. And this all happens, these three habits happen before contact. So I'm going to play a short video for you and apologize apologies up front, because the video might be a little bit choppy for you. And if that is, no worries. I mean, it's not gonna change what we're talking about today. Some of you have seen this point, and pretty simple. And so look, what I want you to be thinking about and we're going to look at this one shot I played, right? Which was the shot after I played a return to serve. And now I've got a ball that's kind of sitting. I've got a sitting ball right there. And now we go into what are the three habits we should do each and every time. And number one is, let me move that down. I don't know if that makes a difference at all, my little screen there. But the first one is really shot choice commitment. And look, this ball is sitting up for me, right? I mean, the thing lands right around the service line. And so I've got shot choices, right? There's a little bit of a list I could go through in terms of, well, I remember when I did this particular point as a What's the Right Shot episode, I stopped the video right here and I asked everyone, well, what do you think is the right shot? And we got all kinds of different shot choices. We got something where we'll just rip it up the line. Obviously, that's wide open. Okay, that is one shot. I could take it and I could maybe play, assuming that this opponent's going to be moving back to maybe cover that up the line shot. All right, maybe I'll go for the middle. That's definitely a shot choice. Assuming this player is not going to poach and is going to kind of move back here, why not play it deep at this player's feet just as an approach shot? Definitely a shot choice. Why not play a little dropper? Just assume that this guy is not going to be looking for it and play a fancy little dropper right in here, right? Why not lob? Why not think that this player who's going to recover is also going to be kind of crowding the net, and why not lob? So another one's just to kind of drive it at him wherever I think he's going to end up, rather than risking going up the line and missing, or he comes back and he's got a wide open backhand volley here where I'm kind of hung out to dry off the court. Why not just go right at him? Well, there's 6 shot choices right there. And what I've discovered is that when I make an early shot choice commitment, Meaning, and for me, and look, and you guys are the same as I am in this regard. We've all played so much tennis over the year, whether it's singles or whether it's doubles like this. We've played so much tennis that we have an initial shot instinct. It's not like we just absolutely don't know what to do. We've got to pick from this menu. And so, what I've learned is that whatever's my initial instinctive shot choice, that when I stick with that and I trust that, that it works out better for me. Even if the entire world knows what I'm going to do, I execute that shot better in terms of technique, which means that no, it's not always a winner, but consistency goes way up. But if I go through in this situation, there's one of six shots I could choose, and I wait until the very last second, well, then a couple of things don't happen. Number one is the second habit I'm going to show you, and it's the third habit that I'm going to show you. And when we make a decision at the very last moment, there's a lot of not trusting it, number one, but your confidence is not very high when you execute it because you haven't prepared as well as you will prepare if you have an early shot choice commitment. So, and again, I go back to everyone who's on here has played so much tennis that you've got an instinctive shot choice that always pops up. And lots of times you just don't recognize it. It's there, but you're not thinking about it. Or you're not, I shouldn't say thinking about it, but you're not aware of it. And so here's the thing I would ask you to do this week or the next, few times you're out in the court is be aware of what your instincts tell you of your first shot choice. If your instincts tell you, I mean, we've already seen the point, right? And I played a standard approach over in this area in the alley. I had no visual that it's going to end up being a winner. I think this player back here just didn't think that was my shot choice. He probably thought I was going more in the middle or something, but it easily kind of slid by him. Wasn't the greatest slice backhand approach of all time, but it was just played to a part of the court where I had made an early shot choice commitment, and yet I could have thought to myself, if my initial shot choice instinct is let's take this and let's drive it up the line. I'm not here to tell you that would have worked out as well as this one did, but I am here to tell you if that was my initial shot choice, that what I've learned over the years is that when I commit to it and stick to it, I've got a nanosecond more time to do habit number 2 and to do habit number 3. So let's do this before we go into habit number 2. If you've got any questions, the way that I'm answering questions is through the chat, right? And if you don't know where the chat function is in the webinar panel, it is right down below. And just go ahead and type in your question right now. If you've got something that you don't understand, or you've got a comment, a remark, or maybe even a question about this first habit of early shot choice, let me know. And if not, that's cool, because we do have a small audience today. Let's go on to habit number 2. So Jorge, I see you raised your hand. Again, Jorge, I can't respond to that. You just need to go into the chat area, find that chat area, and type in what your comment or question is. David says, what if you have a personal favorite shot that you execute well, it may not be the right choice? So it depends on what you are grading as the right choice. Is the right choice meaning that you give your opponents an opportunity to touch the ball? That's fine. That's a good shot choice. Again, when we've always talked about what's the right shot, there's 2 premises there. Number 1 is shot choice, and then number 2 is the next best court position. So you could say that, well, my shot choice is to rip the ball somewhere, to do something that doesn't improve your court position, that kind of leaves you in a spot. And I think I mentioned one of those, whereas, yeah, I mean, you could take this as your initial shot choice, as your initial instinct, because you've got a good solid top or backhand, and you could rip it up the line. And just because technique wise, that's your shot. But you know what? If this player has recovered and is over here, the second part of what's the right shot is now you haven't improved your core position, because you've ripped it from somewhere in, let's say, this area here. And and we all know that when you drive a ball or that you go top, it's tough to move to another better core position. So I don't know how to answer that question. Maybe you can be a little bit more specific, David, um, of what in your mind. I mean, give me an example. Might not be the right shot choice. Why don't you go ahead and load that up as I go to these other questions. Jorge saying, have you ever found yourself switching from your first choice because it's a low percentage shot? I have, but I can turn a low percentage into a high percentage um, in terms of, and again, what is low percentage? Well, it could be that the low percentage is geometric, right? You're going over the highest part of the net. You've got the shortest distance in the court that you're using. So, but yeah, I mean, I would say that years ago, I would, whether it was low percentage, high percentage, whatever it was, I would kind of not trust that first shot choice. So for example, if my first shot choice was to go up the line with this backhand, I would hedge my bets, because it is a lower percentage, because the net is higher here, right, than it would be in the middle or maybe somewhere cross court. So what I would do is to hedge my bet on it being a quote unquote low percentage, where maybe I'm playing it, geometrically inside the court, making it even lower, is I would not rip it hard, because the ball, I wouldn't be able to have the space to get the ball up and down. So I'd probably play a low and slow approach, right? And that if this opponent did not recover, it's going to get by him. Doesn't have to be hit a million miles an hour, but if he does get to it, it's going to be low, right? And I'm going to be able to improve my court position. So not sure if that answers the question. Andrew was asking, many times my first shot choice is not a high percentage shot. I made the exact same decision as you the other day, and it worked out. Slice forehand from the outside down the line. Okay. So I think what happens here is that you start to condition yourself that when you stick to that instinctive shot choice, the first shot choice that comes in your mind, over time you start to make adjustments, and you tell yourself after the point's over, hey, I don't want to do that again. So because it's a low percentage, and typically low percentage in my mind is going for a point ending shot. And so I think what happens over time, and this has happened to me with my tournament stuff, is I've realized that okay, well, next time I get that opportunity, if I guess I'm kind of going against the grain here, but if my initial thing is to do the same thing, I now know what shot choice I want, and it's going to be more of a higher and some of this is conditioning. It just over time you start to condition yourself to have a higher quality, higher percentage instinctive shot choice. Mark saying, do you ever pre-choose, like if the net man is really crowding the net and you decide that if you get a certain serve, you'll lob, for instance? For sure. Absolutely. If I've got a guy up there who is, not only tight in the net, but loves to poach, I am going to have and again, this is preconditioned on, if they give me a different serve that maybe is a fat, juicy thing that I might want to do something else with, maybe I don't lob. But if it's, all things being equal, absolutely, I'll go ahead. And, I think the other thing too is the opposite kind of comes into play here, where you think, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take it and I'm going to rip it cross court, the return. And yet the server doesn't cooperate, give you the kind of opportunity where you can go ahead and high percentage kind of beef it up cross court. And that's, I mean, if they serve right at you, and that's my play most of the time in doubles, I'm going to try to jam the guy. I'm going to try to go right at him. And if that happens to me, I'm probably going to have to, go to plan B, which is to lob. So David's going strategic choice. I mean, for example, I can hit a pretty good little feather dropper, but maybe I overuse it. Well, okay. So that's going to be actually habit number 3. And I know, David, this summer that we worked on habit number 3 a lot. And let me not give that away. So I'm going to answer your question here in habit number 3. So guys, those are all great comments, remarks, questions. Love it. Let's go on to habit number 2. So habit number 2 is, and you've heard this a million times from me, is about spacing. So you've made your early shot commitment, right? And that's good, because too often what happens is when we go through the laundry list of potential shot choices and we start going through 1, 2, 3, and we decide, well, let's try number 4. By the time you get to number 4 could require slightly different spacing to the path of that incoming ball, right? And so if you don't have the right spacing, then you know what happens? We're just improvising. I mean, we're just improvising the whole time with stroke technique. And if really your goal is to become a consistent shot maker, then you need to have consistently great spacing to the path of that incoming ball. And spacing is what? It's that spatial distance that you need to position yourself with your feet. That's that spatial distance away from the path of that incoming ball. And if you jam that spacing too tight, then you know that you're sort of improvising stroke technique, and your early shot commitment, I'll tell you, it just doesn't work out. If the ball is slightly too far away from you, meaning you haven't really moved to the ideal spacing for that early shot commitment choice, then again, you're improvising. And once we improvise with stroke technique, we don't get the opportunity to make stroke technique so dead simple that we could repeat it over and over and over again. And so look, what is footwork? I mean, footwork is, there's all kinds of fancy terms for, well, how do you come out of your ready position? Is it a crossover step? Is it a jab step? Is it this? Is it that? It just drives me nuts. I mean, because it's so technical, it's so confusing. And for most players, it just consumes their mind so much that it's just worthless. So here's what I would tell you on spacing. And I sort of discovered this epiphany. I don't know, just over the years. So it's not really an epiphany, but it's just kind of a feedback for me. So look, I mean, and you guys, like I've said early on, is that we've all played so much tennis. We've all hit the ball, the tennis ball, hundreds of thousands, if not more times, right? And we know, we feel when we've hit a ball that just feels incredibly good, and it actually goes to our intended target, and everything works out. And yet our response to that is too much of, even if you don't say it out loud, it's like come on, baby, or it's, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Yeah, but it's never an opportunity to go, okay, that felt so great because I had the perfect ideal for me, for my game, for my unique backhand, and mine's different than yours, as yours is different than the next guy, and it doesn't matter. But it's got to become an opportunity when you play that great shot that feels incredible, is that you rewind the video just a nanosecond till you go, hey, what was my spatial distance away from the path of that ball? Because if you can start to identify what that is, then you know what happens is you start to tell yourself, well, that's what I want to do over and over and over again. It's a habit. And we need to build this habit using that kind of feedback loop, which is I just played the shot I really intended to play, right? I had an early shot choice commitment. And I'm not telling you that every time you have an early shot choice commitment and then you consider spacing that you get it right. I mean, it just doesn't. But when you do get it right, you need to recognize that rather than the self-congratulatory type of response that we get when we hit a good shot. And so I hope that makes sense, right? That's one way to start to build the habit of good spacing is simply recognizing that on this one good shot that I really hit great, man, I need to do more of that. I need to do that more often. So again, what I will do sometimes, and I know that we've talked a lot about this after missing a shot, and we see the pros do this, or we see the pros kind of rehearse, before returning serve or something like this. But what I do now is that not only when I miss a shot, and typically for me, when I miss a shot, it's all because of spacing. There's some little spatial thing that I just didn't have right. I didn't consider it. And so what I will do is rehearse the spacing that I wanted to on that shot. But after I hit a really good shot, I will also rehearse it again to start to build the habit, try to just sort of feel exactly where that point of contact was like a nanosecond ago when I played that great shot. And you guys can do the same. So let's let's chat about that for a second in terms of spacing. You have any comments or questions? I know that we've talked about this so much, and this was like the big deal that I got from Tom Stowe was all of this footwork is all about a couple things. Number one is, yes, you want to arrive to the hitting position, your ideal setup hitting position, as early as possible and as on balance as possible, and spatially, ideally where you want to be, so that the swing part, right? This is all pre-contact. This is actually all pre-swing. That it gets to be simplified, it gets to become minimalist, so that the less we have to do, the more repeatable it becomes. So before we go to habit number 3, guys, go ahead and let me know what's on your mind with habit number 2, spacing footwork. And Thomas said, good advice. I thought that habit stacking was to change a bad habit to a good habit. Won't spacing possibly determine shot selection? Yeah, I mean, look, shot choice and spacing don't really go like one before. I mean, for me, shot choice is the first thing, and then I create the spacing around that shot choice. Um, and yet you might be thinking, well, I got to get a certain spatial distance away from the ball. But as you start to go through your laundry list of shot choices, the spacing requirements, the minutia of that spacing requirement, so you can create a repeatable stroke, it becomes a little bit different. So and look, habit stacking is I mean, we could take this from bad habits. We could take it from that, but I'd rather take it from what habits do we need to create rather than what habits do we need to break. I mean, one of the habits that maybe you need to break is that, yeah, I mean, your shot choice commitment is woefully way too late. Your spacing, you're just not honoring the spacing on a consistent basis. It could be that you've got the greatest shot choice of all time, but you don't honor the spacing thing, and now you can't execute that shot choice, that early shot choice commitment, because you don't have the right spacing. Um, Andrew, my coach teaches creating space as well. It's just hard to concentrate on that when I see the ball coming at me. Yeah, I mean, look, as soon as the ball starts coming at us, we can get tense, we can get confused, we can get tight, we can get all kinds of things mentally. And you're talking about concentration, which is obviously, a mental skill. But one of the ways to overcome that concentration thing is to build these 3 habits. And once you build the 3 habits, now you have way more of a tangible method of being able to execute this next shot, depending on what's coming into you. And the only way that you can do that is I mean, like I've got my buddy Owen here in the desert. We go out 2, 3, sometimes 3 times a week, and we kind of go through the same routine. And every time I go out, I've got one habit on that day that I'm just going to groove. I'm just going to repeat it over and over, because the drill thing we do, it's competitive because we play some points, but it's not where we keep score in terms of sets, right? And like sometimes we'll play a set, sometimes fine. But most of the time we go out in terms of drilling, playing points, but that doesn't mean that I can't still be consciously thinking about a certain habit during those points. And I know everyone says, well, you want to play instinctively when you play points. Eventually that's true, but until you build habits, it's really hard to play instinctually using really good habits. Um, okay, well, you're saying at 71, you do not process the shot as fast. Well, okay, I just turned 72 and I'm not a total bumbling, drilling idiot yet. Uh, some people might disagree with that, but look, as I just said, Andrew, you can build habits and look, make sure your teaching pro is not over teaching. He or she is not giving you so much that you look great in practice. You look great I should say, in the lesson court. But when you go out to practice or drill or even play a practice match or a league match or tournament match, that you've got so much going on inside your head about what you're thinking you have to do. So what I'm going to do at the end here is well, I've already given up what I do in terms of how to build a habit. And for me, it's going out and whether I'm hitting cross court, whether I'm hitting up the line drilling, whether I'm warming up, whether I'm playing practice points, whatever it is, I'm thinking of one habit, one really good habit that I want to that I want to build on that day. And most of the habits I've got right now are, unless I'm completely distracted, or just not into it for whatever reason, I can be distracted, and those habits can temporarily kind of go away. So you need to make sure that your lessons are simple, are very clear, are not complicated, and that when you leave that lesson from your pro, that you've got, if you're seeing your pro once a week, there should be just one thing, one habit you're building that week, um, before you go back the next week. Um, Mark is saying, I found that once I make my shot choice, I have to immediately prep my body for the shot, unit turn, etc. And once I do that, the spacing starts to be more automatic. If I am late prepping, my spacing suffers. And there's no question. The reason that we prep late is because we're not committed to that shot choice. Now, look, there is one caveat here. A lot of players think, okay, I've got an early shot choice, but I'm going to prep late because I don't want to give away what I'm about to do. And I used to kind of think like that. And, the problem is that all of a sudden the ball was on me and now I really couldn't execute what I wanted to execute because I'd prepped late. And when we prep late, even though you've got in your mind, you're very clear about where you want to play the ball, um, we start to improvise. Either spacing's not right or something's not right, timing. So even if you tell the world, hey, guys, Mark, if you tell the world, guys, I'm going over there, I'd much rather have you be able to make that early shot choice commitment, get the spacing early. And then the third thing that I'm going to show you here in terms of the habit is the thing that kind of keeps players at bay, right? So even if you tell them even if you have a look that you're about to do something, that you might not do that thing. And I just kind of gave it away. Anyway, anything else on habit number 2, spacing footwork, before we go on to habit number 3. Jorge, this is my biggest opponent in every shot. Any drills or any ideas using positive feedback, like you said? This is my biggest opponent in every shot, which sounds like yourself. Is that right? I mean, is that what you're saying, Jorge? Is that you are your biggest opponent? Any drills or ideas besides using positive feedback, like you said? Well, look, I mean, we do have to drill, we do have to practice, and I'm not a big believer in the ball machine unless the ball machine is set sort of on random, right? Like some ball machines will only pitch the ball to a certain part of the court over and over and over again. and so what players get in the habit of doing is standing in one spot where they don't really have to have any footwork to create the spacing that you need to be able to execute that shot with as little technique as possible. And so if you have that kind of ball machine where the ball will only land in one spot, that's okay. But you've got to make sure that the balls are not coming out so fast you don't have time to move away from that spot where you just made contact, so that you have to create some footwork to get over to it, right? So that's good. That's good. Yeah, I would just go, guys, and we've all done this. When you hit the ball, whether it's in drilling or in practice, whatever, when you hit the ball and you feel it and you know it and you look up and it's going exactly to your intended target, use that feedback in terms of spatial. How far away was I at the point of contact? Okay, guys, let's go on to habit number 3. So habit number 3 is like, to me, the holy grail in terms of what has made me a better tennis player over the last 10 years. And what's made me a better tennis player over the last 10 years, and it's really been it's been Disguis. It's been that I can prep my racket in such a way that my opponent in singles or my opponents in doubles don't really know what I'm about to do, even if I've had an early shot choice commitment and even if I've got the right spacing. So from this racket prep position, the question I'm going to ask you is, could I, from this position, with the ball about waist high when I make contact, could I drop it under the ball and drive it up the line as a semi to full top or backhand? The answer is yes, I could do that. Could I, from this racket prep position, if I felt that my opponent, who's directly in front of me, was closing the net, could I just feather a lob over to that corner up the line? Yes, I could. Could I go ahead and drop the racket below the ball and drive this ball cross court into, deep into that alley? Absolutely. Absolutely. Could, if I wanted to, could I play a drop shot from this racket prep position? I sure could. I sure could. Or could I, if I wanted to, could I, from this racket prep position, could I go ahead and play in just a standard underspin, no big deal? What's the deal about Jimmy Parker? What's the deal about Larry Turville? What's the deal about any of these guys who are legends about just playing a simple slice underspin approach shot? You could. But the thing that they have mastered is that they have a racket prep position, whether it's like this, whether it's on a forehand, whether it's on a volley, right? Whether it's on a serve. Look, on the serve, their toss is always in the exact same spot. You can't get a read as to where they're going to play that serve, because the toss, whether they're going to play a little dart to the corner, whether they're going to play a dart at you, whether they're going to dart it down the tee, whether they're going to kind of roll it, play more of kind of a rainbow, you can't tell. You can't tell because of toss placement and the same racket, the racket prep position. So, for example, on the slice backhand, what have we, and I'm working with my buddy Owen ever since not working with him, but ever since I've gotten back down here to the desert, Monday. We've been out in the court a couple times, and there it clearly. I did the slice backhand course, what, 6 weeks ago, and he was one of the students on it, and he just went, what's changed my game has been the point and touch. And the point meaning, and this is on the slice backhand, whether it's in singles and doubles, whether it's a slice backhand ground stroke, whether it's a slice backhand approach, it is point. You point your front shoulder directly at the ball and you touch your racket to the shoulder. And that's your reference point. It's that simple. And yet from this position, how many different shots did I just list that you could play from this exact racket prep position? Now, what does this do to the opponents? They can't get a read on what you're going to do. I know a lot of players who not only have got great early shot choice commitment, and they've got great spacing, but you can tell. I mean, it's the biggest giveaway about the shot that they're just about to play because of where they prep the racket. And so, yeah, there it is. These are the three habits. If you want to become a really consistent shot maker, the first two are all about being consistent, right? Which is going to be early shot choice commitment. And then the second one's about spacing, so that stroke technique wise, you get to be super simple. That there's no more complication. You can, when you can repeat this thing over and over and over again. And the third one is about really keeping your opponents at bay so that they can't get a read. They have to guess. And when players have to guess, whether it's singles or doubles, that's unsettling for them. If they look, I went back, I was saying that, maybe over the last 10 years, that these three habits have changed my game. The third one has really been more, especially in singles, has been more about the drop shot. And as I've gotten older, right now I'm, 72. This is what, my third year in the 70s. Look, we're a bunch of old farts, right? And rather than trying in singles to try to challenge my opponent from side to side, that horizontal thing with kind of big, heavy shots, if I can disguise a slice backhand that goes deep, and then the very next one, I set it up to where it looks like I'm going to do the exact same thing, and I play a drop shot, way tougher. And I learned this in the 60s, 65s, and 70s, way tougher for my opponents to have to move forward and then backwards rather than just side to side. Now look, this particular backhand slice setup here works for this shot. It works for the volley. It works for, it works for the return to serve. I mean, there's so many different shots that you can play. And I'm just talking about the slice backhand here as this example. But those are the three habits, guys, that I want you to groove. And look, go ahead and load up the comments. Lee is saying there's a coach at targettennisinternational.com that says that visualizing a target above the net is fundamental learning tennis. Do you agree with this? I totally do. I totally do. And I got that thing from Dennis Ralston years ago, where he told me that on this shot right here, do not think about a spot on the court over there. Because even for where I am right here, I'm looking through the net. If I was to really stop time right here and look at my target, right? If I could freeze everything right here and I could take a look at my target that I wanted, which is about midway in the court in the alley, I would be looking through the net. I wouldn't be looking over the net. I'd be looking through it. So now my target is a spot that I'm trying to avoid. It's in the line of a spot I'm trying to avoid, as opposed to what I'm thinking here is now, well, this is just like a backboard. Let's say that this white line, the tape on the net, is a backboard. And what do we always think? Well, there's only one thing we always think about a target on a backboard. We got to keep it above the white line. It's not a spot on the other side of the wall, right? It's simply a spot above the top of the net. And when I got that from Dennis Ralston, probably 5 years ago, my entire game changed. I mean, and so look, Lee, what you're talking about here is a major shift in target, shot choice, target, and we didn't talk about target today, but that's part of shot choice. Really, is going to be, where do you want the ball to land over there? Well, I don't think about I do think about where I want to land over there, but I equate that to a simple spot above the top of the net. So Andrew's saying, is it Ian, Andrew, or I'm not sure. Where exactly do you prep the racket for the slice backhand? Right here. I point my front shoulder at the ball so I get sideways, right? Because we want the swing path on the slice backhand to go forward and not from left to right. If you don't turn enough, your natural swing path wants to go from, if you're right-handed, wants to go from left to right across the ball. You don't really get underspin. You get more of a kind of a side spin, right? And so that's thing one. But the other thing is I prep it. I just touch it to my shoulder. I just touch it to my shoulder. And from here, I can execute, 5, 6, 7 different shots. All right, guys, any more questions before we go on to the next slide here? See if we've got anything else. Okay. I'm going to play this one more time. And I don't know how well this plays through Zoom and Keynote, but try to get the sense of those 3 habits, right? Which is number 1, right here, shot choice, spacing, right? And disguise. So I know it happens pretty quickly. And unfortunately, I need to bring up the live video to be able to kind of scrub through it. Okay, guys. So look, what do I do to build each habit? I've already told you. I go out and when I practice, when I work out, when I drill, even sometimes when I'm playing practice sets here, singles or doubles, I will think about what's one habit. I don't think about all 3 of these habits. So for example, today I might just be thinking about early shot choice commitment. I'm just being aware of what is the what is the first shot choice that comes into my mind, and trust it, right? That's a big part of this early shot choice commitment habit. Number 1 is, do you trust it? And most players don't trust it. And that's why they go to shot choice. Well, maybe this would be better. Well, maybe this one would be better. No. Maybe and now the ball's on top of you. So look, that's what I'm going out here to hit with my buddy Dave in 45 minutes. And I'm going to pick one of these 3 habits to work on today with him. And so it's you got to practice it. I won't practice all 3 today. I'll practice one of them. I'll cherry pick one. And maybe tomorrow I'll think to myself, you know what? I want to continue on that one that I did the day before. But how do we build habits, right? We just do them over and over and over again. There's no magic to it. There's no magic light switch that you get to switch on just because you now know, oh, okay, well, I was on that thing with Brent on Thursday morning. I now know the 3 habits that I've got to perform to be a consistent shot maker. Well, I didn't say that they were 3 technique things or 3 principles or 3, fundamentals. They are principles, they are fundamentals, but but they're habits. They're really good habits that you got to drill. You got to drill, and you got to just get bored with it, right? You have to get bored with it. You can't go through, 3 minutes of it and go, oh God, this sucks. This is no fun. Well, the reason it's no fun because you're not good at it yet. And once you get good at it, don't think that you've got it forever, right? It's not like riding a bike. You're going to have to continually habituate these things over and over and over again. What else, guys? Andy, you are welcome Hope that helped. What else we got here? And so what's on your mind? Would love to know. We've gone through the 3 habits. I've really just lathered it up today, gone way longer than I thought I would. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Whatever else is on your mind, go ahead and type it into the chat box. Let's see here. So a couple things. Look, I'm just loading up in the chat area right now a link that if you want to get some private coaching. And look, this is a pretty low key thing. It is a private one-on-one, just you and me together. We can do it on the phone. We can do it on a Zoom thing. You can send me a video of your whatever, a match, a stroke technique, or we can just talk, right? But here's the offer: is if you want to get on the phone, if you want to do a 15-minute free complimentary call, just to kind of feel it out, see if I might have something for you that would be a good fit. You can make that decision if it's a good fit for you. And then we can take the next step if that's what you decide that you want to do. The thing to start with would be to go ahead and just click that link that is in the chat area right now. And that'll take you to my online calendar. You can cherry pick a date and time that's available that works best for your schedule. And look, there's no pressure. This is not a sales pitch. I'm going to get you on the phone and hard sell you on anything. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to come to me and you're going to say, here's the one thing right now that if I could really get that thing organized, maybe it's a habit. It could be technique, could be strategy, an overall strategy, could be tactical, could be mental, could be physical, right? Maybe you need to lose 15 pounds. I don't know. Maybe you need to get quicker. Maybe you need to get mentally tougher. Maybe there's something technique you don't quite understand. Top spin serve, right? A lot of players just don't get it, right? Well, how do you get the spin on the top spin serve in a way where at least you get the ball in play, but it doesn't just sit up for your opponent? Maybe that's it. But what I'm happy to do is kind of hear what you feel is a one thing, one-on-one private deal. And again, we can Zoom it. We can just do it over the phone, whatever you feel the most comfortable with. Free. It's 15 minutes, enough time for us to kind of dig into that one thing. And then you kind of decide, hey, you know what, I want to take the next step. And if you want to take the next step, great. We'll go ahead and I will tell you exactly what to do. And if not, that's totally cool. That is totally cool. Any more questions, guys, before we get off? Mark, you're welcome. As always, would love to get your feedback, guys, in terms of send me an email, Brent@webtennis.com. Let me know if today, if you got anything out of it, and if there was one takeaway in particular, would love to know what that is. If it totally sucked, let me know that too. I'm always looking to get better in terms of finding ways to help you guys with your tennis game. I'll go ahead and load up that link again in the chat area for your complimentary 15-minute private one-on-one, just the two of us coaching call. So guys, if that's it, David, you are welcome. And by the way, I got a big shout out to David Skirmerhorn, Steamboat Springs, Colorado. That is really my new home now. We sold our home in Northern California this summer, and we've been going to Steamboat Springs, Colorado for the last 5 or 6 falls, from about mid-September until the end of October. 5 or 6 weeks. We love that time of year out there. And we finally decided this is where we really want to, lay down some roots. And so we ended up buying 5 acres out there, a little bit south of Steamboat, closed on October 15th. And we're going to build our little cabin in the woods at some point. But David Skirmerhorn, and this is a guy in the 75s, plays a lot of the national events, some of the local events, and is really, the kind of player that I love helping, because so into it, completely into, finding out more about the game of tennis, but specifically for him, what are the things that he needs to pare away, cut out? What are the little cancerous things he's got that just don't need? They just don't work. Let's get rid of those, right? And what you might discover by going more minimalistic in terms of stroke technique or tactics or strategy or whatever it is, shot choices, is that you become much more of a consistent shot maker. And I think what David discovered this summer, and I'm really hoping what is the result when he starts playing tournaments in January, is that the game is going to have a lot better clarity, right? And clarity is habit number one, shot choice. Oh, it's just crystal clear what I'm going to do, and it's the first thing I thought about. Number two, the clarity of spacing. And then the third thing is I've worked on a shot choice. I mean, I've worked on a racket prep position where it's disguise. And I know that my opponent doesn't know what I'm about to do. And that's just a huge confidence builder. David and I got out twice a week this summer. Usually, I would say most of the time it was twice a week. Occasionally we missed once. But we went through the same routine every time. The same exact routine. We used a green dot because the altitude in Steamboat is like 66, 6,700 feet. So for me, the balls fly and we just don't get to hit enough tennis balls. I think we tried that years ago when we first started hitting. We went to the green dot ball and we discovered that, man, we can keep this ball and play a whole lot longer and we get to hit a lot more tennis balls. Played on court 7 every Tuesday, every Friday, 11 o'clock Mountain Time. And David, I just want to give a big shout out to you, man. That was a lot of fun for me. Did so much for me in terms of what we talked about. I mean, you know that I was always working on one single habit building skill for that day. And so anyway, what else? Who else we got? David, you're welcome. Jorge, thank you so much for all this. I'm definitely going to work on building habit number 2. Outstanding. Outstanding. All right, guys, I'm done. Got to get ready. Got to go hit on the grass courts here. What's the temp today? 91 and sunny already here in the desert. It's going to be a cooker out there. I'm looking forward to it. Guys, any questions? Brent at webtennis.com. I'm going to put the link in there one more time for you in terms of that free 15-minute coaching call. Would love to get on the phone or a Zoom session with you at your convenience. Guys, get out there today and help someone else have a spectacular day. Until next time, guys, thanks very much.